use it. But tonight we have some folks from DEC. If you guys haven't seen it, I'm sure you know that there's been some new fishing regulations released, the same ones we discussed with Steve and Maureen back in January. Many of them, most of them been realized. So Steve wants to talk with us about that tonight, and we're going to give him the floor. So why don't we hold any questions that you have for him until he finishes on a particular talking point, and then Steve, maybe you can field questions. So if you say you talk about the trout regulations, when you're all set, we'll hit questions on that, and then, you know, as you move on from topic to topic, we can address questions after each one. Does that sound all right?
You bet. You bet.
Okay.
Before we get started, Dan, I'd like to make some introductions. I mean, everybody knows Maureen, of course, but also tonight with us is Greg Kozlowski, who did a lot of this regulation writing, and I wanted Greg on the phone tonight, not only to experience this, but to also provide technical backup. And also we have a very special guest tonight. It's Jackie Lendrum, who is our new division director. And she's on tonight to kind of see what's going on here, meet you guys. We're really excited to have Jackie on board. She's a breath of fresh air and a lot of energy, and I think she's going to do great things. Jackie, do you want to say anything?
I'll just say hi, everyone. I'm excited to be here. I'm listening in from my kitchen, so I'm going to keep it off camera for now, but I look forward to meeting everybody soon.
Okay.
And I'm going to jump in because I know I was emailing with Chris Paparo just this afternoon about the next time that DC, at least right now, will be joining you guys. And I think the date is the April 18th, and I have to double check that, but I think it's a Wednesday in April.
That was the date.
To talk turkeys.
Yeah, and that was a date that I believe is it Mike had requested himself. He said that was a good date for him.
Yep. So Mike and Josh Stiller will be joining you guys on the 18th. And if you're amenable, we'd like to have Jackie on to just discuss a little bit about her role and stuff. This last meeting was kind of an emergency quick meeting that we wanted to get in before the April 1 deadline, or search time, I should say. But by the April meeting, we have a little more time for you guys to come up with any questions, both on turkeys and any other opportunities for Jackie to address.
Yep. And that, just for so you know, that's a Monday. That's the day after Easter.
Oh, is it 8?
Yep.
Right. I'm sorry. It is a Monday. It's not a Wednesday. I apologize. Yes, it is the Monday. That's all for me. Thank you.
Maureen, I feel like a slob. I got my DEC t-shirt on. You're all dressed up.
No, you're representing. It's all good.
All right. We ready to get started then?
Absolutely.
Okay. So, I mean, it seems like longer than January when we got together, Dan, but I guess you're right. That's when it was. And so anyway, we have finally adopted our what we called fishing regulations cleanup package, where we have tried to streamline our regulations, make them a little bit simpler, get rid of unnecessary regulations, and, you know, just try, as you guys know, we have really been trying to make fishing easier, more fun, simpler, and easier to understand too. And you guys have heard me say ad nauseum that, you know, when regulations get too complicated, it's really tough for people to obey them, all right? Because it just gets too complicated. And the last thing we want is to dissuade people from using all the great fisheries resources in our state that we have. So I want to begin though with not talking about the regulations themselves, Dan. I'd like to talk about process a little bit. So did everybody get on the website and did you look at the assessment of public comments? And if you haven't, I really encourage you to do this because, you know, we did something a little bit different this time around, and I'm really proud of what staff did with this full assessment of public comments, because not only does it say what we did and why we did it, which is extremely important, we really tried to tell a story. We also talked about the process, and we talked about regulations and what they're for and why they're important. You know, so many times people respond, well, you know, with this regulation, you know, these outlaws are going to do this or do that. And, you know, the one thing we tried to hit home in here is, well, regulations are actually for the honest guys. All right. Outlaws are going to be outlaws regardless, no matter what the regulation is. You know, that's one facet that we really tried to get crossed. We also tried to talk about how overly complicated regulations can really keep people from fishing and enjoying fishing. And that many times, okay, we really don't have the wherewithal to get into those kind of weeds with those kind of complicated regulations. And furthermore, a lot of these regulations have been on the books with, you know, relatively little surveying to back them up all the times. Okay. So I really, if you haven't read that assessment, I really hope you go through. It talks about our whole process. It talks about the information we used to back up our decision making, how many comments we got. Every comment is also in there. Every comment is in there. They were grouped into themes and we addressed those. So I just think it's good government. It's really refreshing that our new governor really is really interested in transparency. And I think that's a great thing. And I think this document's very transparent. And it says what we did and why we did it. And like I said, I hate to keep repeating it, but if you haven't read it, please read it. So with that being said,
If I can just interrupt for a second, if you guys don't know where that is, if you look at the press release, you'll see a link to it there. It's about 120 pages. So it's a pretty considerable document, but it is there. He just held it up for you there. You can see.
yeah, but I mean,
what it looks like.
really, I mean, the most important pages are the first 6, okay? And if you just go through the first 21 pages, all right, from pages 7 to 21, it basically takes those comments, groups them into themes, and then provides our response in there. It counts every comment towards that theme. I just think it's really cool. So, you know, this is the first time we've gone to this extent, and I'm very proud of what we did. So, anyway, without further ado, the regulations. So I'm not going to go through every regulation. We had our meeting in January. We went through the highlights of the changes. What I'm going to start off with, and then we're just going to open up for discussion, is basically what we did not adopt, okay? So everything got adopted except for 2 major things. And the first major thing was we did not adopt the statewide lake trout regulation. If you guys recall, what we wanted to do was open up lake trout year round, all right? Most of our significant, all right, and that's the key word here, significant lake trout waters are already open year round via special regulation, all right? And we said, you know, that's where most of our people are going fishing. You know, we should make it easier for it. Let's just make the statewide regulation. We got some feedback from anglers. And as I told you guys in July, you know, we were also, excuse me, kind of on the fence about it. And basically the bottom line is we said, you know what, we just don't think this is the time right now to do this. There was other things, there was some messaging, you know, climate change was part of that also. So, because remember, I told you before, it was about a 50-50 split. Even though most of our lake trout angling is on those significant fisheries, we still have just as many waters, albeit they're smaller, okay, that we do need to keep closed year round, all right, to protect spawning stock. Those are mostly up north, so we decided not to go through with that. The other regulation, large regulation we did not go through with was the brook trout regulation. If you remember, we wanted to go with a 5 and 2 regulation. That's 5 fish any size with 2 over 12 inches, which is what we have for our trout streams for statewide. And it's also what we've just employed for our rainbow trout and our brown trout. We wanted to have some consistency there. Well, I tell you what, the comments there were just so diametrically opposed. I mean, there was a left-hand camp and a right-hand camp. Some people wanting us to, you know, have a more liberal approach. Many people complained about packing a canoe in for many miles and only being able to harvest 2 big trout. Other people wanted us to be very conservative all the way to the other end of catch and release. Managers and central office talked about this. We have had a brook trout plan on the horizon for brook trout ponds. And we said, you know what, why don't we just back off a little bit here? Let's get our plan done. Regulations will be a small part of that plan, but we just decided to take a step back and say, let's take our time with this. We'll revisit it because it was just 2 totally different camps here. So that's basically it. There were some other regulations. Lake George, we did not adopt the statewide Atlantic salmon. We went back, looked at our data after some charter boat captains actually weighed in with comments. They were good comments, forced us to go back to the data. We looked at it and we said, yeah, maybe we ought to hold the course. And that's it in a nutshell. I mean, everything else was adopted. We got some really good comments. You know, like I said, we got 427 comments. An overwhelming number of comments just came in and said, hallelujah. Anything you can do to simplify the regulations, we welcome. That was a lot of it. I mean, that was a tremendous amount of comments were just please and thank you. All right. The comments we got on the opening seasons were, you know, where we changed our Saturday dates to hard dates, was very, very, as we knew it would be, was very favorable. If you recall, we had a survey that we put out in advance of the rulemaking package just to test the water, see how people felt about it. And, you know, for lack of better words, it was around 60% favoritism. We said, yeah, we think we got enough here to move forward. And it was almost mimicked here in what we got for comments. So that went through. We're happy about that. I'm really excited for you guys to see the regulations guide, and we can talk about that in a little bit, but that's it in a nutshell. You know, I would rather do more responding than talking and talking out. Yeah, I'd rather give you guys a chance to ask questions. And Greg, did I miss anything?
No, I think you got it pretty good.
Okay. So Dan, I'll open the floor to questions at this point.
Okay. What's going to happen with Lake George? What was the, because I mean, we already have a season there. Were they worried about you changing the size limit or something on that?
Yeah, they were worried about both the size limit, you know, and the take. So, and especially having it, you know, they have a larger size limit there, as you know, and you know, we went back and we looked at the data and the growth data on Lake George, and we said, you know, the growth data is there. That's one place where we have good growth data. And so we stuck with it.
So basically a special regulation will remain there.
Yes. No longer for the tributaries though, Dan, because the one thing we did learn is that, you know, we were protecting those fish in the tributaries. We just could never get any natural reproduction out of those tributaries. So we did eliminate that.
I was going to say, what tributaries on Lake George?
Well, that's exactly right. There's a handful, but
guys, anybody have anything to say? If you do, make sure you unmute your mic. I see everybody's mic is muted, so make sure you unmute your mic before you ask a question.
Well, Steve, when do you think the regulations guide will be coming out? June, July?
No, you know, come on, Bill. Yeah, you can only bust to a point, Bill. No, good question, Bill. So, you know, we've had some supply chain issues. Our printers actually had some supply chain issues. We are hoping to have this go to print on the 28th. That's when we're hoping it to go to print. We should get it out by the second week in April. But we hope to have the guide electronically available early next week.
Steve, I don't know if anybody would want it, or Maureen, this may be a better person to ask this question. Would it be possible to maybe get a high resolution shot of the cover of the regulations guide? I know we might want something like that in Outdoor News, but some of the other folks might want that for their publications.
It's a really good cover too. It's a really good cover. I have to defer to Maureen on that.
Yeah, I will work with the production folks in our, it's not my unit, so I'll work with the communication services folks to isolate that page, and we'll try and get something to you as soon as possible.
Yeah. Okay, and I can share it with the group if anybody wants
Great.
it. We'd probably
Sure,
run it
thank
just to give viewers and our readers an idea of, you know, how it differs from the old one, so they know what to look for when they're online and when they're, you know, eventually in the at the issuing agent.
Yeah, that works.
And guys, just so you know, I mean, hard copies will also be available if people email us, and they've already been emailing us. I think we got as of today, we have a little bit over 100 people asking for guides when they become available. So we'll mail those out to individuals.
Steve, do you anticipate doing anything with lake trout at all in the future? I mean, I know you held off now. Are you going to sit back on that? Or do you think it's just going to keep things the way they are and not worry about it?
We're going to keep things the way they are for the near future, at least, Dan. I really want to get hopping on our brook trout pond management. That's where I want to go next. You know, the world has changed, as a lot of the people on the call here know. You know, we had a brook trout plan it's almost 40 years old. When that brook trout plan was developed, all right, our major concern at that point was acid precipitation. Thanks to the Clean Air Act, we are actually in better shape than we've been for a long time. But we have a new problem now, and that's climate change. And you know, brook trout really like cold water. And while a lot of these waters are spring fed, they're still getting squeezed. You know, the hyperlimnion is getting a lot warmer. These fish are getting squeezed in the summertime. We're actually talking to Cornell right now about a study for them to do to look at our different strains of brook trout and which ones may be the most tolerant under certain conditions. We have a meeting in a couple of weeks with them to try and flesh some things out. So I want to focus on the brook trout right now, Dan. I think that's the most important thing, especially given the comments we received. So a lot of people with a lot of opinions, and I think we need to get on top of that. Like I said, it was on the docket. The trout stream management plan has taken up a lot of our time, but I think now we're in a comfortable enough position to switch over to brook trout in ponds.
Folks, anybody got anything?
I've got one. All the regulations that were approved are effective as of April 1st, except for the inland muskie. Is that right?
Yes. So let me explain that. So that regulation's effective April 1st also, but the department has, through the commissioner, has broad authorities, okay? And the one authority that we can use is what's called legal discretion, all right? And given the timing of when the regs got approved and everything, and knowing, and this is once again, Bill, we are responsive to, and a lot of people from out in your neck of the woods, to people's comments saying, yeah, we're okay with the reg, except for this year, people have cottages booked and guide services booked, you know, and we took that into consideration. And so for this year, and only this year, all right, people will not be ticketed if they're fishing for muskies, you know, on the last Saturday in May, from then till June 1st. So.
And this has nothing to do with the Lakes muskie regulations.
I lost you, Bill, there for nothing to do with
Great Lakes muskie regulations?
no.
Okay.
So, but I think this is another really good, you know, a lot of people, I think they think we just go through the motions or the regulations package, which is not the truth. And, you know, that was one thing that we got from the Western New York contingent. And we said, yeah, wow, you know, we didn't think of that. And, okay, is there something we can do? And we worked with our program attorney and our guys in green, and this is what we came up with. So.
The problem with classifying some of those lakes or bigger ponds that have both brook trout, some rainbows, and so on. Is that why that section on the northern counties are left as is for now? In other words, one of the things said that a lot of the counties up north, Herkimer and Hamilton and so on, are kept the same. I was just wondering if it's because of the fact that some of those waters also have rainbows and browns in addition to brook trout.
Yep, and I'm glad you brought that up, Leo, because that's something that even before this regulation change that I have been, and we will now push ourselves away from those multi-species stockings because it makes things too confusing. And if you guys remember our last conversation in January, I said we want to treat brook trout differently. That's the state fish. It's our, natural, it's our native fish, and we need to looking at those differently, even when they're stocked, okay? And it just causes confusion, and we really don't know if there's a need to have that diversity of species in such small bodies of water. So as we move forward, Leo, we will be to a single species. Now that may mean that a pond has just brown trout in it, not brook trout in it or rainbow trout. So does that answer your question?
Yes.
Yeah, Steve, I had the same question. I was going to use Jabe Pond as an example. In 2019, they put quite a few brookies in there, but that's a real good brown trout fishery and rainbow trout fishery. So will the brook trout catch rate be different in that pond than other trout?
So I don't know where we're going with Jabe. I can't get into those kind of weeds, and Greg may be able to speak to it, but I know Jabe Pond came up, but it will be single species stocking from here on in. What we're going to stock in there, I can't recall, whether it's going to be brown trout or brook trout or rainbows. Greg, do you remember?
I actually thought Jabe Pond was one of our brook trout ponds, so I was caught a little bit off guard with the brown trout and rainbow trout, but I'm not.
Stocking list will be coming out. It is out. So you can check that out, and I'll make sure to get back to you tomorrow morning with that.
Yeah, I know there's brown trout in there. I don't know if they're stocking them this year. I haven't looked at the stocking records, but I can real quick.
Yep.
Jabe
But,
Pond,
I think the takeaway point is, once again, to eliminate some of this confusion, we're just going to stock it with a single species
okay.
at the same rate, okay?
Yeah, I don't even see Jabe Pond on the stocking list at all for Warren County.
Okay.
Yeah. But I know when you look at like the contour map, it tells you what species is in there. I know they fish brook trout and I've caught brown trout in there, but so I basically had the same question as Leo about these, what will happen regulation wise, even if it's just this year with ponds that have multiple trout species in them.
There'll be some residual trout in there, but I mean, those put, grow and put and take ponds, we'll only be putting one species in henceforth. Keep it simple.
Kiss.
Yep.
I had a couple questions, if I might ask.
Sure, Judy.
I opened the PDF of the freshwater fishing regulation changes for 2022, and I'm a little confused. The first chart, the statewide season and limits regulation changes. Under trout, it just addresses brook trout in lakes and ponds, brown trout, rainbow trout in lakes and ponds. Why aren't, how come it doesn't mention the streams?
I believe, Judy, that, and I'll have Greg speak to this, but the only thing that we put up there were actual regulations that changed. And so, Judy, as you know, we put into place our trout stream management plan last year. We have not touched those regulations.
Oh,
They
I
have
see.
stayed to see. So this is just anything that changed.
Okay. So basically the year-round fishing, catch and release all during the fall and the winter is still in place.
Yes, Judy, yes.
Okay. What am I wrong in remembering that there was going to be less stocking of trout? And my question kind of hinges on that. You had mentioned that over the years there were not many surveys being done. And I remember when I worked in fisheries, everybody, whether you work for fisheries or wildlife, everybody would go on surveys in Region 3.
Mhm.
In Region 4, we had no fisheries manager, and in Region 3, the fisheries manager retired. But do you think that there's a way that there will be more fisheries surveys, at least in our Catskills area, to determine whether or not the fish spawning is being impacted and how, whether or not more stocking is going to be needed.
Okay, no, that's a good question, Judy. So as you know, as part of the trout stream management plan, when we adopted that catch and release regulation, we also made a commitment, and that we are following through on, that we are doing a study on that catch and release regulation to evaluate it. And there's streams in each region that are being done. You should see a technical brief on that probably in about a month or so. We have all the data from all the regions, and we're putting that together. And we'll continue with that for the next 3 years. So that is our evaluation, and we are doing those surveys. On top of that, if you remember from the trout stream management plan, we also had that whole list of the categorization of trout streams in the back of a plan. And we actually put that out every year now because there's always changes. We had a bunch of these that, remember I said at our meetings, our trout stream meetings, that, you know, a lot of streams that were on the edge where we might not have had data for 30 years. And a lot of those were in region 3.
Yeah.
And so what we've done is those ones where we had question marks about, we are actively going in and surveying those. We bite off a few in each region every year, and we do an assessment and say, okay, where should it be categorized? Pleasantly enough, we're finding that many streams, a few we've had to add stocking on, but a lot of them, we have the biomass that justifies them moving to what we call the wild quality category, and we don't have to stock anymore.
Right.
So that'll be up on the website. If it's not up there now, it should be up there within the next couple of days. But that whole categorization of trout streams, and I'm so glad you brought this up, Judy, because this is another area where we said we were going to do this in a trout stream plan. And when you look at that, it has all the trout streams in it, how they're categorized. And when something's changed, it actually tells you, yeah, we changed it. This is why we changed it. And this is what it's changing to. So everyone is informed, and we're held accountable, as we said we would be.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear that there's going to be more surveys being done, because that'll be crucial. And hopefully there'll be enough staff to head those surveys. One other question I had that my husband Ed and I were talking about recently is how having the catch and release fishing all year round may impact hunters and hunting. We know because my father-in-law had sold public fishing rights down on the Willowweemawk, and you know, he would hunt down there. One thing that's very popular is when the woodcock migrate. They tend to stay along the rivers, and there was always some pretty decent woodcock hunting here. But you know, if there's going to be people fishing in the stream, it could be a conflict of interest. And the other thing is, I'm just wondering if it's going to impact any public fishing rights acquisitions. You know, if people know that there's going to be people walking along their property, you know, all during the year. Just a couple of things that I hadn't thought to bring up before.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah, it actually, that was those things were brought up in our comments in the trout stream management plan. And to date, we have not heard complaints of any conflicts between hunters and anglers. As far as PFR acquisitions, you know, whether having it during the hunting season would limit people's willingness to sell us a PFR easement, I can't really speak to that. I don't think it will. I think there's actually much bigger factors that are affecting that. People don't seem to be as willing, Judy, as they used to be in the past, to provide easements. People who do have the land want their privacy, and they don't, you know, they don't let go of it too easy. We have picked up some easements in the central portion of the state and the western portion of the state, but it's a little bit different. And I think you know that in your neck of the woods, there's also a lot of absentee landlords that own those properties also.
Yes.
So
Thank you.
you're welcome. And say hello to Ed for me.
I certainly will.
Steve?
Steve, if we could step back to the trout stream management plan, if we would.
Sure.
Could you refresh my memory on DC's policy regarding stocking brown trout over wild brook trout?
Okay, so basically, if you remember from the trout stream plan, we take a reach approach, all right? We're not managing by water, we're managing by a reach, all right? And so let's say the upper reach has brook trout in it, you know, at a level that we say, no, this is a good brook trout population, leave it alone. That doesn't mean downstream of that, we aren't stocking brook trout, okay? Now, will there be some transfer between? Yes, but we are not stocking, we no longer stock them on top. If you remember, the first thing that the trout stream management plan says is we are drawing a clear line between stocked and wild management, all right? And that's what we're doing. Now, like I said, is it perfect? No, but I said this, you know, 2 years ago when we talked about the trout stream plan, but it's a step in the right direction and we are not stocking right on top of fish. There'll be a little integration, but you know what? Not too much. How are you, Steve?
Doing well. I'm retired.
I know you are.
Having
to
fun.
see ya.
Thanks.
He reminds
Thank
me
you.
of that regularly. Steve, I had someone I was conferring with share an interesting question, and it was basically he wanted to know if the agency was going to do anything going forward to make sure that these changes are what you want, what you know, what everyone wants long term, and if you're doing anything to make sure that the goals are realized, or is this just it? I basically didn't know if things would be changed back at all.
Well,
That's
I
not my
mean,
question. That's somebody I was talking with about this.
yeah, no, it's a good question. So let's bring it back to the root need, for lack of better words, or the root objective. And that was trying to make things a little bit more streamlined, a little bit simpler. All right. These were not, for the most part, dramatic changes. They really weren't. But let's take where we went with brown trout and rainbow trout with going with the 5 and 2 reg. Okay. We had some people, mostly in region 4. They were a little concerned about that because they were managing a few lakes under, you know, a 3 and 12, 3 fish, 12-inch minimum size limit. They liked that. They were a little worried that, you know, with the 5 and 2, there would not be enough holdover. Well, let's see how it goes for a while. What I'm saying is we've always managed adaptively. All right. And if there's an individual water body that needs some changing, we'll look at it. All right. But for the most part, when we look at the bell curve here, I think the prescription that we've set out in this regulation package fits 80% of that bell curve. And so if we need to do some fine tweaking around the edges, we will.
Good.
Yeah, just remembering another one. What's the status of the Sauger program?
I knew it was coming.
I didn't. I just remembered it.
Sauger program's doing well. We actually we're going to continue with stocking, I think, for another year after this year. We hopefully will get fry from Kentucky again this year. We're making contact with our friends down there. They're doing really well. They're doing really well. One of our problems, Steve, is trying to inform anglers and educate them to the difference between walleye and sauger. But they're doing well in the Allegheny. It's a great program, and I think we can call that one a success story. We will be wrapping up our evaluation, like I said, probably about a year from now. We'll get a report out on that, but early indications are that we're doing really well with it.
Dave, there are 11 bodies of water that you're doing an experimental program
Yes,
for sunfish.
and crab.
and-
Yes, sunfish. Yes.
Will you be placing signage up at those locations in addition to what's in the regulations guide?
Yep. And I was hoping that I would have the sign done by tonight to show you guys. But we will have it out. We will have it. We had to wait until the regulations went to, were approved before we could do that, Bill. And so having just them approved, but we had a sign ready, ready to go, and it's been approved by our print shop, our print people, and it'll go out to production, and we'll have it on those waters soon.
Okay.
We're really excited about that program. We think we're going to learn a lot. So,
Hey, Steve, Bernie Heaney here from up in Jefferson County. Had a quick question for you, just to review. Last week, we had our Region 6 Fish and Wildlife Management Board meeting with Jan and Fred and the folks up there. And Janice shared with us the draft, if you will, nothing in print, of what the black bass management plan is for Jefferson and St. Lawrence County. And as I'm sure you're well aware, I've been asking for that for about the last 15 years. So I was really excited to hear that. She shared with me that around the end of the month, mid-month April, we're going to try and get signs up on our side of the river saying that we do not support catch-release bass fishing from these launch sites. And it's some of the select ponds up in Jefferson County and St. Lawrence. And she and I talked about that. That's a good news story. And she said Chris is going to start doing some angler creel surveys with his Lake Ontario unit folks. Have you been read in on any of that, or what the actual plan is for that?
yeah,
Can you share any of that with us?
yeah, and we're going to be stretched to do, we're going to try to do some creel survey work, but we're going to be stretched to do it this year, Bernie. The signs will be going up. They're running in parallel with the BPI signs. Like I said, once again, we had to wait. But the creel survey, I'm actually talking to Jana about a whole Eastern Basin Lake, St. Lawrence River creel survey. We desperately need one. As I don't have to tell you, Bernie, that's a gargantuan task, especially on the St. Lawrence. I mean, it is a gargantuan task, something that, we have talked about. I think the real exciting thing is that we are addressing, there's bass issues up there. There's bass issues statewide. And, let me get through some of this brook trout stuff. But the other thing that we'll be working on, hopefully down the road here is taking another look at our black bass management down the road. And I'm really excited about that too. But the creel survey, we've talked about it. We have some plans, but we don't have everything worked out yet. It's a high bar, Bernie.
Yeah, it is, but I don't think it needs to be. I mean, it shouldn't be that difficult, really, Steve. And I'm pretty sure that given my contacts with the 3 major bass fishing associations across the state, I can probably get you some volunteers to work with the DEC. I don't know what the COVID rules are, so forth and so on, but I dare say a lot of those guys and gals, just like the ESF folks, can sit in the boat with a clipboard and ask some questions and write down and turn in the results. I don't think that's a stretch too far, and if you want me to work on that, I can certainly do that.
Well, I think that we should probably have a discussion with Jan on that, and Chris. But it is on the radar screen. It is on the radar screen.
Good. All righty, that's a step in the right direction. And also, Jan and Chris shared with you that the target is the Eastern Basin and St. Lawrence River first. And once that's decided, then they'll move on to the inland waters with Jefferson and St. Lawrence County in Region 6 and a few select waters in Region 5. Is that still what you're tracking as well?
Yeah, well, you're right, except that it's not just those 2 counties. We'll be tackling it statewide.
Okay.
But the Great Lakes, as you know, is a different ball of wax.
Yeah, I've heard that for the last 35 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's always a different ball of wax when it comes to black bass, but any other species we can get stuff from deep water, Great Lakes, everywhere else, and bring it in here, and it works just fine. But when it comes to bass, we're so unique in the universe. It staggers my mind. I will be quite frank with you.
Yep, you always are.
I know. That's all I got, guys.
Thanks, Bernie.
Any other folks? Greg, is there anything you wanted to particularly talk about at all yourself? Or?
I think I just wanted to confirm what Steve said about the trout stream categorization document that is up on the website now on our trout stream management page. I want that. You can go grab it now if you wanted to see it.
So Dan, if you want, we can talk a little bit about trout season coming up here.
Sure, fire away.
So the trucks are rolling, especially downstate, starting to put some fish in the water. We're still getting some challenges, you know, logistically because of the Rome hatchery situation with zebra mussels, but we're working around it. We hope to come out soon with a report card of where we were for our first year with the trout stream management plan. I'm happy to report that, you know, two of the objectives were that we wanted to try to have a 9-inch fish go in the water. I think we, you know, we're still calculating it out, but it looks like we hit that about at the 80 to 85% mark. We also wanted to get 10% of our stocking would be fish that were 12-inch plus, and we were right around the same area there too. It's basically up in your neck of the woods, Dan, where we're struggling a little bit out of the Chateauguay hatchery, just because we don't have room, and we're trying to do some different stuff there. The other thing with Rome, and I think I said this in January, but just in case I didn't, is because of Rome, you know, we had to move our heritage brook trout out of there. We're raising some of those up at Chateauguay, but what we're going to do this year, and we've already started, is we're going to raise half of our heritage strain fish at the South Otselic fish hatchery. All right, South Otselic, and that's where I cut my teeth as a young fish culturalist, has gargantuan amounts of cold water. We drilled another well. Between the two wells, we're getting over 800 gallons a minute. So we're going to raise brook trout down there, and we're going to take our tiger muskies. We're going to raise those up at Oneida. So pretty excited about that too. The other thing I want to talk about with trout streams that most of guys, I've talked about this in the past, but now it's going to come to fruition, is I talked to you about what we call the trout stream management category signs. We'll basically say, you know, this is wild quality. Here's the regulation that goes with wild quality, and post those at footpaths and bridge crossings. As of last week, I think we had about 75% of our PFR posted. So, and that was our gargantuan task. Those guys have been out in the snow posting those posters, and so we're in really good shape. Not all the regions, we have a couple regions that are 100%. I hope to get an update on that tomorrow, but that'll be another thing that's out there. And if you guys need pictures of those posting signs, let me know, you know, for any of your articles or anything, I can send those. But we're really excited about that. Once again, trying to tell the anglers, you know, just be more responsive to them. So
I think it'd be cool to get some of those pictures of those signs.
okay.
Be a good thing.
Yeah, send it to the group.
Yeah.
Okay.
As long as you're talking about trout. Are the hatcheries following their own guidelines as far as letting people know when trucks are going to be stocking?
So I'm glad you brought that up, Bill, because I saw you, I was working on your press inquiry today. And so we don't make it a practice of telling people exactly when things are stocked. That may have happened in the past, but we try to avoid that, and we really tried to get away from it during COVID. We will give a date range of when things are stocked. If you go on our interactive mapper on the info locator, and you bring up a stream, you know, it'll tell you, you know, the weeks when it is stocked. So it'll say first week in April, you know, third week in April, something along those lines. But the exact date will not be posted.
I was trying to inquire about some of the urban lakes and ponds that receive stocking.
Yep.
And just trying to let people know, like the date range I got today was between April 4th and the 21st. To let those inland people or inner city people when those locations were going to be stocked.
Yep.
You know, maybe if it was like a little bit more narrower to let people know. But you know, I get calls all the time asking when are they going to be stocked? When are they going to be stocked?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Now, I think that's about the best we can do, not just from the standpoint that, you know, we don't want to have, masses there and just a few people are there, especially in those smaller ponds in the urban setting. We want to try to spread those fish out a little bit more. But the other thing is the logistics. We can usually get it within a week, but logistics wise, we can't always nail it down to the day. That's for sure.
Yeah, I guess we were just spoiled in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was April 6th, 10 a.m., Hyde Park Lake, Niagara Falls.
Yep.
That was, oh well. Is what it is.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, they stock the ponds for the youth derbies, the local hatchery does, and you got people right there waiting to catch the fish ahead of the kids, and that always kind of drove me nuts at the derby they had in Glens Falls, because they'd stock it on Friday and you'd see adults there Friday night trying to catch the fish ahead of the kids, and you can't close the pond down. It's a public water. You can't just say you can't fish here. But so I kind of like that, that you're discreet about it,
Well, we try and get it in the ballpark. We're trying to manage expectations in a realistic fashion.
Anybody else have any questions for these guys?
Yeah, I got one. For going for brook trout, moving forward with a new brook trout plan, is what's the prospective time frame on that? Is will surveys be going out for this year, like they did for the CROTS program and all that type of deal?
No, it's a good question, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm trying to think about the process right now, and I haven't fully grasped that yet. I just want to come up for air, and after April 1st, I'll probably think about that a little bit more and talk to the managers about it. But it'll be similar to what we did with the trout stream plan, Jared. But I don't think it'll be exactly the same. I think we may do some survey work, angler survey work to inform where we're going to go with this. But I have some ideas, but nothing nailed down yet as far as process goes. But it will be a public process. I can guarantee you that.
Yeah, when you earlier in the meeting, when you said it's either this or that, I can really identify with
oh yeah
either of those.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, that is going to be, yeah. So currently, brook trout pond regulation stands as it was previously, 5 fish of any size.
Yes, unless there was a special reg underneath it.
Okay.
So
clear enough.
Any other folks? Well, Steve, Maureen, and Jackie, it was great to have you guys tonight, and Greg as well. Folks, we always enjoy these chats, and I'm glad we were able to get some of our members to be here for you as well. So thanks again, and we can do this anytime you want.
And don't hesitate to reach out to Maureen if there's something that comes up, that forgot about, a question that comes up later. We'll be very responsive. You guys, as I said before, you're our pipeline to the anglers. It's really important what you do. So
great.
And I'm sorry, I keep going on and off mute because I just picked up my daughter from soccer, so she's getting in the car. But I wanted to point out, because I think, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, in January when he did come onto the call, and I'm going to pull over now so I can talk to you guys without hurting any children in soccer uniforms, that he asked you guys to get everyone to get out the news about the regulations that we were seeking public comments. And I know he said that after that, we saw all these articles about it and we got a tremendous amount of public feedback and input. So again, thank you for heeding that call and making the regs package, I think, a better package overall.
Yes. Thank you, Maureen. She's so eloquent.
I just want to say, I didn't have a lot to say tonight, but I'm really enjoying these meetings. It's timely, it's great communication. It's making our jobs easier. At least I know it's making my job easier. I think this is a really good thing we have going right now.
Well, and Tommy, I'm glad you brought that up, because this is something Dan brought up when Maureen and I and Katie and a bunch of other folks met with you guys. when did we meet, Dan, for the outdoor writers meeting? I can't even remember.
October
but-
2nd.
In the fall. Yep.
Right.
Yeah, and this was one thing you guys said, and I really enjoy it too, you guys, and it's good. It helps me think about things. And I think it's a really good venue, and I'm up for doing it all the time.
Well, I told you about our spring safari, and I've talked with Maureen about interacting with us. And I mean, maybe sometime we could do our own workshop, our own a day where we're all outdoors somewhere together and we're fishing together or whatever, and meeting for lunch, meet in the afternoon. I mean, we could
Well-
plan some programs, with the agency and this group, and for us, it's something we can offer our members. We want to offer our members direct access to people where they can ask questions, meet people, see the person, everybody can see who they're dealing with face to face and get to know people. And I don't know, to me, that builds trust, and it just, it sets the stage for a lot of bigger and better things. And that meeting in October was really productive. And
Yep.
I heard
Agreed.
that from a lot of people that were there. They were really happy that we did that at that conference, and they enjoyed it a lot and got a lot out of it.
A couple other like minor housekeeping things, because I know Steve recently asked about a list of contacts in our different regional offices for you to continue to interact with. We had a couple of moves and such, especially in Region 6 and Region 8. So I just wanted to let you know that Andrea Pedrick, who is actually the public participation specialist in Region 6, is now the public participation specialist in Region 8 in the Finger Lakes region there. I know she was just out with Jeff Murray for the fish sampling over at Catherine Creek, I believe, just this past week. And that was a nice little foray into the fishing world of the Finger Lakes tributaries. And we have somebody filling in Region 6 while they work on filling out the position that's there. So in the meantime, always continue to reach out to us here at the press office, either through our main mailbox or through me directly at any time. And, we're really happy to have Andrea on board and really hoping to try and get a little bit more news out of Region 8. We haven't had somebody there full time in quite a while, and we're enthusiastic about the opportunities that could happen there.
And Steve, we're trying to plug the angler diaries a little bit for you guys. I don't know what's going on with them, but I keep trying to put them into fishing reports this time of year. Hopefully people participate in them.
Yep. Well, I know that in your neck of the woods too, that we'll be running the Lake Champlain Creel again this year.
Mhm.
So, and please, if you could encourage the readers and the anglers to, the one thing, we've got some good biological data last year, but we really could use some more. People were hesitant to have us, measure their fish. We're not law enforcement. We're just looking for data. And so we're trying to do some outreach with that. We're actually going to have an incentive program to try and get people to stop. And we know people, they want to get their boat out of the water, they want to get going, but it really helps us a lot. To where the rubber meets the road is what people are catching.
So you're doing that again on Champlain this summer, just like you did in the winter?
You bet.
Good. All right.
You bet.
I'll get us the information on that. We'll get the word out on that. And I've got someone sitting in on Saturday's meeting, Lake Champlain meeting.
Yeah, I'll be there. I may not be there for the whole thing, but I'll be there for most of it. Good stuff.
Oh,
Thanks a lot,
Steve,
guys. Appreciate it.
I have one more question if you're available quick.
Yeah.
It's more on the ice fishing genre of things, but in the new panfish plan where things have gone to 25 panfish, does that include perch as well?
No,
Or is-
no.
Okay,
That's
the perch
that's
are
just-
still a separate entity.
Yeah, perch. And so we did a survey on perch, and most people want us to bring it down. And I'm going to be totally candid with you. I did not want to mix apples and oranges there because, as we know, there's a pretty large hook and line perch contingent out there that's very vocal. And I didn't want that to bring down the crappie and sunfish stuff that we were going to want to do. And perch is something that we receive a lot of feedback. You guys have brought it up with me multiple times. It's something that we'll address down the road. It's just low priority right now. I've got bigger panfish to fry. No pun intended. But, you know, and as Bernie brought up, I mean, we've got to tackle the bass issue here. Lots of stuff going on. Can't do it all at once. Would like
Yeah.
to. I mean, some people criticize us because, wow, you did a lot with this regulations package, but every time we do something, it's like, hey, what about this? What about that? You know,
So perch remains the same as it did.
perch remains
50
the same
50
for
fish.
now. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
10-4.
I think that survey's up on our website, Jared, if you want to look at it though.
Okay.
It's in a technical brief. And you guys should really look at those technical briefs more. They actually, you know, you should check in on time to time on the website because they give you something to write about. You know, DEC did a survey. I mean, there's very few surveys we do that we do not write up. We write up everything now, and they're nice because they can only be one page. That's the rule. You know, one sheet of paper, I should say. And so they're very informative, and you know, there's something there to write about all the time.
Excellent.
Don't ask me for the website address because I don't know it, but it's.
I have it bookmarked.
Well-
I can share it with people.
Well, so we'll just go to Dan.
All right. Well, hey, folks, hope you all enjoy this tonight. Got something good out of it. And we'll see you all the next time. Leo?